What's happening, Bills Mafia? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm Ryan Thomas, and I am joined by a very special guest, a man that I've wanted on the show for a long time. What better time to have Tyler Dunne on the show than AFC Championship game day featuring the Buffalo Bills and the big bad Kansas City Chiefs? But I get a feeling that the predictions are going to be pretty fun for this one. Tyler Dunne, thanks for joining me on the show. I have a few questions for you, but I want to start off by acknowledging the show that is the Go Long TD podcast, as well as the golongtd.com website with extremely insightful interviews and articles. I got to say, Go Long TD, starting from the top, is Thomas Take approved. Love the website, love the interviews. Talk to the audience a little bit about that. I want to start the show off with you, giving a little bit of a self-promo on what you have going on.
Well, thanks so much, man. It's great to be here. I'm sorry it took us so long to connect this. It's what better way, right? AFC Championship, NFC Championship, like you said, the best day of the year. So I appreciate you. It's been great. I launched late November. It was a perfect opportunity, I thought, just to branch out and form my own long-form enterprising website/newsletter. So basically, if you sign up, you can sign up for the free stories, or you can subscribe to a monthly rate of $7 a month, couple cups of coffee, $70 a year, and then you get everything. That's all features, all profiles, Q&As, the podcast. We do Zoom happy hours every Friday, usually with some special guests where we drink beer, talk football, and we have a discussion threads, all this good stuff. But yeah, so you get a couple options there, and it just felt like the right time. I'd covered the NFL for about a decade, a little over a decade, a lot of relationships, a lot of connections. Being at Bleacher Report as a national writer and being able to kind of be around different teams and players and agencies, and I just felt I was ready. I think the league should be covered a certain way, and sadly, unfortunately, you see most of sports media go in a different direction, and that's
right.
A lot of everything kind of bundled a couple sentences at a time, and maybe people want to digest the league that way. I feel that the long form, the takeout approach, that there still is an appetite for it. So being able to do that through Substack, that's our platform. It was a perfect marriage, a perfect combination, and everybody's been unbelievable. I mean, from the players being open to just talk at length for these stories to the readers subscribing. I've really been blown away. And Ryan, really, I think that the foundation for it is right here in Western New York, locally, where I'm from. It's been unbelievable. People have been signing up in waves, and I could not be more grateful for it.
Yeah, and as soon as you launched this project, I thought, this is cool. I love when people start their own, independent project and seeing what ways they're able to personalize it. Go Long TD. And then I think to myself, go long, Tyler Dunne. I'm like that. It clicked. It clicked as soon as I read that. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, and the interviews and the angles that you approach football, I think, are really unique and extremely original. I don't see many analysts or journalists, writers approach football the way that you do in terms of the questions you ask the players, whether it was your interview with Stefon Diggs, which I'll get to a little bit later, as well as the podcast episode you had with the Buffalo Bills great Eric Moulds. I listened to that one driving home in a snowstorm, and I wasn't even nervous driving. I was just at ease listening to the show. I was like, this is awesome. So thank you for the content you're providing me and many, many others. So I wanted to start off the show with that.
Oh, I appreciate you. And I think that's kind of the goal, right? There's a human side to this game. I think we can get caught up in the numbers and analytics and metrics, and that stuff's important. But this is a game played by human beings. Never try to do interviews. Just try to have conversations with guys, and that's definitely going to drive my publication.
For sure. So, along the way, you've seen some very rough Buffalo Bills teams, and I'm putting that lightly, saying rough, like, it was pretty awful for a long time to be a Buffalo Bills fan. There were years where I'd have this stuff on my walls. I'd have friends over that weren't Bills fans. I don't know how they weren't Bills fans, being that they live in Western New York, for Pete's sake, but that's another topic for another day. but I basically kind of lived not in shame to be a Bills fan, but there were some really rough years. And I have a question for you. As far as this 2020 Buffalo Bills season goes, where does this season rank for you in terms of your memory? You're a couple years older than me, so you remember the Super Bowl years a little bit more than I do. But what makes this 2020 Buffalo Bills team so special heading into this AFC title game?
Yeah, I think in most of my lifetime, and I guess I vaguely remember that last Super Bowl run. I was born in '87, so we're talking, 6, 7 years old. I definitely remember the Music City Miracle and the disappointment and all the adults' faces seeing Frank Wycheck lateral that ball to Kevin Dyson. But most of my life, it's been that feeling of dread and doubt, and things inevitably are going to go wrong for the Bills, right? I mean, I think that 17-year playoff drought, that encompassed, the sports lifetime of most people in Western New York that are millennials or Generation Z. And you just get used to getting excited about different coaches or different players. I mean, I can remember Drew Bledsoe when that trade went down, and the Big Bad Voodoo Daddies did a concert at the stadium to unveil their new jerseys. And Drew Bledsoe's here. And, oh, my God, hope and hype is in the air. There's that. J.P. Losman, first-round pick. He replaces Bledsoe. There's hype there. I remember the Trent Edwards, they started like 4-1 or 4-0 one year. There was some hype there.
Oh, yeah. There was a lot of hype on that one.
Yeah. I mean, even with guys like that, right? Like even, like Trent Edwards, there was that moment of hope and hype. Ryan Fitzpatrick, they're 5-2, I believe. They give him that contract. And then, A.J. Manuel was a first-round pick. And then the ultimate one was Rex Ryan coming in as coach and just basically saying we're going to punch people in the mouth. You know what? We're going to just come in there. We're going to kick your ass, whether you like it or not. People ate that up. Remember, Guinness Book of World Records showed up week 2 of that 2015 season because they thought, they raised money to get him there. The fans thought it would set a record. So I feel like it is definitely, I think, for locals and for fans, number one, because the hype is real this time. The hope is real. They're one game away from the Super Bowl. Josh Allen is clearly a franchise quarterback. They found their head coach. They found people who can pick really good players, and these players are maximizing their ability. It's like everything that fans wanted to believe for 2 decades has come to fruition, and it's real.
Right. Yeah, and it's the way that it has happened is so. I think it's so poetic. You have a coach that went to William and Mary. Marv Levy went to coached at William and Mary. Sean McDermott played there with Mike Tomlin. You draft this kid out of Wyoming that lived in Firebaugh, this small town in California that I'd never even heard of. And Jack Eichel, they're doing that little spiel on the Sabres site, and Jack Eichel's like, Fireball? And he's like, no, Firebaugh.
Bad college memories. Yeah, Fireball, not Fireball.
Yeah, bad memories at Darien Lake concerts, that's for sure, drinking that. Oh, my God.
Oh, nasty.
Yeah,
we were young and dumb.
Again.
What are you going to do?
Young and dumb, yeah, never again, that's for sure. I couldn't do that now, that's for sure. But as far as how they have accumulated the talent on this team and the players themselves and how they've been able to buy in, the Josh Allens, trading for Stefon Diggs. This season to me feels like it's fate. I feel today, when I woke up this morning, I don't know about you, Tyler, but I feel like they're going to win today. And I feel like they're going to do it in pretty amazing fashion. Am I out of my mind, or do I just feel like this is just fate too much, or do you see what I'm saying as far as that goes? Am I losing my mind, basically, is what I'm saying?
You're not losing your mind. I think it's one of those things that's tough to conceptualize and really, these feelings and these emotions that fans have, I think, are what Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane talk a lot about. It's culture, accountability, it's togetherness, it's all that stuff. And I actually had a story up today just trying to make sense of that all. Because I think initially, I'm not going to lie, I mean, when I'm hearing process over and over again, it's like, okay, we get it. Like, what does that mean? Right. What does culture mean? What does any of this mean? And it just seemed like, a talking point, regurgitating at a mic again and again and again. But like, there is something to it. There is that feeling that you had this morning is a result of that. It's somebody new every game stepping up and making a play. And it sounds corny and cliche, but it's true. Like,
right.
There's a reason that they've won 15 games. They've gone 15-3 in these 18 games so far. It's Taron Johnson. It's Gabe Davis. It's A.J. Klein against the Chargers. It's Tyler Bass kicking 6 field goals against the Jets. It's Justin Zimmer forcing a fumble on Cam Newton. I mean, these are players that outside of Buffalo, nobody knows, nobody cares about. But that is an extension of a foundation, of a culture. And I cringe saying that word. I hate it.
Right.
It does mean something. It does.
Such a cliche word, culture and trust the process. I literally remember watching the Sean McDermott press conference live, the introductory press conference. And I'm thinking, I can't buy in. I at that moment, I was like, I've just been lied to and fed false hope for so long that I can't really believe. I have to see results. And I started to see the results going to the training camp practices under Rex Ryan, comparing those, all due respect to Rex Ryan. It was a little bit of a wild leash, I guess you could say. He would kind of let the players do whatever they wanted to do. Whereas Sean McDermott, these guys were laser focused. I saw some players throwing up, and I thought to myself, okay, we might have something here.
It was more country club under Rex. I mean,
yeah,
I was there.
very much.
Right. It was, he thought he was treating them as, adults. They can handle their business, which is true for a lot of guys, but they needed discipline in the worst way. They needed Sean McDermott. I mean, they needed that hard pendulum swing back to respectability, because it was worse than anybody realizes under Rex, the more I talk to people about that whole situation. But no, I mean, and to your point on just something magical being in the air, I think that feeling of something is going to happen, right? That player is going to step up and make a play. It's bound to happen. That feeling is there for you, because I think they've got that culture. They've got this system in place where somebody, maybe, and we wrote about Isaiah McKenzie this week. I had a great conversation with him. Maybe it's somebody like that who just steps up and has to play the game. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
And living in Western New York, being a Red Sox fan is pretty weird for me. It's a very bold strategy. It's paid off. I've watched 4 World Series championship teams the last 15, 16, 17 years. But even I compare it to that, because being that I've watched those 4 World Series championships, it's not always David Ortiz driving in the RBI. It is the Bill Mueller drawing the walk on Mo Rivera to get on base, only to be pinch ran for Dave Roberts. Those things like that are what I have seen from this Bills team. The fact that Josh Allen has, 50 total touchdowns, and Corey Bojorquez has only 49 punts. It's mind-blowing. And it just goes to show you, I have some stats here as well. Not just the fact that they've won 8 straight weeks, but that's the second longest streak that they've ever had. This team is literally putting together a history-making, franchise record-breaking season. And you got a chance to interview a man that has broken a few franchise records in his debut season. And you titled that article, "The Perfect Storm." Stefon Diggs has been the perfect storm for this Buffalo Bills team. What were some of your biggest takeaways in your interview with Stefon Diggs, taking that in and understanding his mentality during his first season as a member of this team?
And you know what? That was the rare case for a Big Friday feature where I wasn't able to get Diggs himself, to sit down. Probably the timing is a little tough, for a star player to just kind of carve out an hour like Isaiah McKenzie did. But in a weird way, Ryan, it kind of helps you as a reporter and a writer. I think you're forced to talk to other people around the situation, and his situation, it transcends Buffalo. I know a lot of people out there in Minnesota, but around the Vikings, having done a bigger Vikings story earlier in the year. And a lot of people said, look, Stefon Diggs was right. He was right to be unhappy. He was right to want the hell out of here, because we're running the ball all the time. And guys did not like the direction of this offense. Now, did he handle it the right way? By, missing a practice and then talking to the team, and they came up with this fake illness and this fake cough. I mean, it was a PR disaster that day, to the tweets and the Instagram deletions and all that. Probably didn't handle it the right way. Kind of childish. But the intent, I think people kind of agreed with Diggs. Now, on the outside looking in, we just see another diva receiver, right? Oh, another guy complaining, whining, not getting the ball. What a baby. Why would you want to bring him in with a young quarterback who just finished dead last in completion percentage? That was kind of the idea for the story. Is like, that was a thought a lot of people had. I mean, it crept into my head. Like, how's this really going to go? Like, just doesn't seem like a good combination. And you know what? The year prior, when they tried to get Antonio Brown, that could have been utter disaster, because you throw Antonio Brown when he's self-destructing in with Josh Allen, when he's still learning, look the hell out.
I thank the Lord in heaven they didn't get Antonio Brown. I like the way things worked out much better.
To your point on, things always kind of going right and the magic in the air. Like, this was – so, that's the thought that I think if you're skeptical of it, you had. And it's just been the perfect storm. You had a guy who was hungry as hell for this opportunity to be the guy. There's not an Adam Thielen here. This is an offense. I'm sure they told him, we're going to throw the ball all over the place. You're going to get your 10 to 15 targets a game. And so he's going to get that. And then you had Josh Allen drastically improving his mechanics, his accuracy with Jordan Palmer. They get together in May down in Florida. I talked to Pete Bomarito, Stefon Diggs' trainer, for a long time. And he was there. He saw them meet for the first time, practice for the first time, and said, this is something special. He's like, I'm not a football guy. I'm a trainer. I'm a performance coach. But even he could kind of tell. And he's telling other NFL players training down there, like, get a load of this. Like, this is going to blow up the NFL, basically. And it has. I mean, and I think bigger than his actual production, Ryan, is the leadership. Chad Hall, the receivers coach, really challenged him and said, look, lead our guys, lead the offense, lead the team. They needed that voice. Look, Lorenzo Alexander, Kyle Williams, great leaders. I mean, they're legendary leaders for this era. Right. But they're not impactful performers like Stefon Diggs. So when you're hearing that message from Stefon Diggs and he's on your ass and he's telling you to get going, like, I think it carries more weight. And it's definitely lifted a very good team into great potential Super Bowl status.
And it kind of goes to the whole ESPN magazine feature as well, where, like, Stefon Diggs was somewhat thrusted into this leadership role by John Brown. There was that whole walkthrough where Diggs thought it was just going to be him and Allen. And he shows up, and there's Brown, there's McKenzie, there's Cole Beasley, and there's the two rookie wide receivers, one of which Gabriel Davis will definitely get to. But John Brown's like, yeah, you lead the practice. You're the receiver that we just acquired for this team. We want you to lead the practice. And Stefon Diggs was like, wow, I'm looked at as a leader. I think the negative perception of Stefon Diggs, you could say it was right, you could say it was wrong, but the best part about it is, whether it was right or wrong, it seems like the Bills' teammates embraced him and just forgot about that and let him reprove himself on this team. That's what I've seen. Would you agree with that assessment?
Definitely, Ryan. I mean, I think you're right on. Chad Hall said himself that, this is his coach. This is the guy that's going to be around him every day. He didn't talk to anybody when the trade went down. This is right in the middle, the start of shutdown, quarantine, all of that. We're talking mid-March. Everybody's watching Tiger King, right? Everybody's watching Tiger King, and he's like wondering what the hell's going on in the world after Rudy Gobert's touching the mic. So the Bills trade. And Chad Hall didn't talk to anybody around the league, didn't reach out, didn't call. He wanted to form his own opinion of this player who was in the news a ton. And I think that's really commendable for somebody to think for themselves and really look at a situation objectively, like he did there. You kind of have to consciously fight to get to that point. I think a lot of players and a lot of coaches are instantly reaching out to people that they, a friend of a friend or a friend. Oh, you were around Stefon Diggs here or there? What's he like? It's human nature to do that instead of just thinking clearly for yourself. Chad Hall did that. I think a lot of the teammates, a lot of the players of Diggs did that as well. I'd be remiss, though, too, to point out they're winning a lot of games. He's getting a lot of targets.
He's had the best season of anyone.
Something hits the fan, We'll find out, down the road maybe. I mean, even some of these sources in Minnesota that I have who are quick to say he was right, they say, look, it's still kind of in there. He's got 3 years left on his deal, and I would be surprised if he didn't go to Brandon Beane asking for more money. And is Brandon Beane going to want to set that precedent? Is he going to want to give a guy a new deal with 3 years left? And other guys in the locker room see this like, where's my money? All teams get to that point when you win. So that's why, look, I know there's a young quarterback, there's all this young talent. Maybe the Bills are here to stay for a long, long time, but you don't know when this opportunity is going to come up again. Like, they've got a chance to win it all right now. The finances are perfect. Rookie deal on the quarterback. Stefon Diggs is happy. All of this, you gotta do it. Like, I mean, I'm sure there'll be, say the Chiefs win today, and rightfully so, a lot of fans will probably say, you know what, big first step, and big step we took, we can win down there. No, I mean, you don't know. You don't know when it's going to come up again. Aaron Rodgers, he won one ring in 2010, and it's been a decade since. We thought he'd have about 3 or 4 by now.
I completely agree that the time is now. Like, the time is this season, the way it is played out. If we do lose today and the season ends today, I can say as a fan, wow, what an amazing season. Blew past my expectations. I thought they'd win the AFC East. Maybe with a 10-6, 11-5 record. They didn't just win the AFC East. They swept the division. They broke franchise records with a third-year quarterback and a first-year wide receiver on the team. That at one point, people were saying they might have gave up a little bit too much for Stefon Diggs. It's hard to even think that now, given the season that he has had. But you touched on Josh Allen, and obviously Josh Allen is Buffalo's favorite son right now. I think he's like their adopted son. Bills Mafia is just in love with this guy, and rightfully so. He checks off every single box. He checked off every single box early too, even in some trying years as a rookie and last season. But what has impressed you the most about Josh Allen this season? Yourself and Jim on the Go Long TD podcast. It's like Jim has somewhat fallen in love with him more so over the last few weeks from what I've gathered. He's like, wow, I can't believe how well Josh Allen looks. He looks just like Pat Mahomes in terms of some of the throws that he's making out there. I want to get your take on what has impressed you the most about Allen.
You know what it would be is when I launched my my newsletter, it was out of that Arizona Hail Mary game. So they haven't lost since. And I think at that time, there was still some question marks in terms of, he obviously had the fast toward start, and then some teams started playing some zone. They started trying to confuse him a little bit, and it didn't come as easy to him. There was a rougher stretch there. Even the Patriot and Jet wins were a little ugly for Josh Allen. And, I try to talk to people who know a hell of a lot more than me, and Kurt Warner, a Hall of Fame quarterback, I don't know if there's anybody that watches more quarterback play than him in the NFL. He studies this stuff all day, every day. I mean, he was pretty critical in that story. I mean, he said, like, he needs to process the game quicker. It's one thing to be athletic and have the strong arm, but can you recognize when this guy's coming and this guy's dropping and they're showing you this, but they're really playing that? And then can you react on the fly mentally? Because he believed that once you get into the playoffs, that teams are going to try to confuse the hell out of you. I mean, that's when your mind has to work, and you can't rely on athleticism and improvising for 4 wins in a row. It just doesn't happen. Eventually, you need that Tom Brady, pick you apart from the pocket kind of quarterbacking. So what's impressed me most, to answer your question, I'd say since that Arizona game on, he's processed things pretty well. Like,
was he watching Kurt Warner? Was he watching NFL Network? I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know. Josh Allen's a loyal subscriber. I mean, who are we kidding? Of course he's on there.
If Kurt Warner has any criticism or compliments, if you're a quarterback in the NFL, you should listen. Like, whether he's saying you're doing great, whether he's saying you're doing bad, Kurt Warner, oh my Lord, your infatuation with Brett Favre, I would say, that Kurt Warner, story of him bagging groceries turned to NFL MVP. Oh my Lord. I had a DVD of Kurt Warner and Peyton Manning. It was a throwing tips DVD. When I'm playing catch, all that stuff is still in my brain. Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Kurt Warner is one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time. Sidebar there. Have to throw that in there.
That's why I thought he was a great voice for that story, because here's somebody who elevated his ceiling probably more than anybody ever. I mean, this is a guy that, he was at the Packers training camp. The NFL kicks him out, goes to Europe, arena football. He just got better and better and better and improved in a manner and took a path that we haven't seen before. So that was the question with Josh
really,
Allen.
outside of Brady, of course. But
I mean, I'm just saying in terms of like at least Brady though was on a roster and he had to go to these other leagues and
it was a bag of groceries.
Oh
my God, that's a great story.
Warner's out at that point. Yeah. And with Josh Allen, the question was, can you improve that accuracy? Can you improve your mental acuity? And Warner kind of challenged that. And I think that the turning point was probably that Pittsburgh game. Keith Butler at DC, that second half, he thought he had him on the ropes. Allen didn't play well in the first half, and he's blitzing and he's disguising, he's doing these different things, and Allen didn't even blink. And
the stunts of the Pittsburgh Steelers defensive line I thought would be a problem for Josh Allen, and it wasn't at all. It was almost as if he thrived on it. And I agree with you, that was the turning point, I think, for me, where I started to feel like, yeah, I have faith in this guy physically, but mentally, the way he's approached the line of scrimmage, the confidence that he has had, that is what has impressed me. I completely agree.
Because Seattle had a pretty crappy secondary at that point of the season. It was historically terrible. And even though Allen was great that game, don't get me wrong, I don't know if the Rams defense was as good at the start of the year as they were at the end of the year, but that moment right there, when it looks like the Steelers have Allen, I mean, that to me was a shiny moment this season so far. And, we'll see when people are, watching and listening to this podcast, right? But like, here he is, Patrick Mahomes. This is the bar. This is the expectation. This is the bar. Mahomes ain't going nowhere. He's going to be here for a long, long time. So maybe we should get used to this matchup. And this is Allen's shot to really prove, not just to fans and skeptics, but prove to the owner who loved Patrick Mahomes that he did the right thing and not interfering and making the team draft Patrick Mahomes once upon a time.
My jaw was to the floor when I was driving. I was actually at the Niagara Falls Outlet Mall. I was driving back home, picked up some Christmas gifts, and I'm tuning into the Go Long TD show. And Doug Whaley goes in depth. He was very, very open about the reality of the room that was the Buffalo Bills front office, where their heads were at, where Terry was very interested, as you alluded to, in Pat Mahomes. He said he was like the best player in the draft. They would do those mock drafts in the draft, preparation, and Terry would take Pat Mahomes every single time, over and over and over again. You touched on this, and prior to me diving into that a little bit, but now that Josh Allen has reached this upper echelon, today is the biggest game of his career. Obviously, he has to go tit for tat with arguably the best player in the world in Pat Mahomes. But do you see, no matter the result of this game, just in terms of like the hierarchy of the AFC, do you see Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes as like the true narrative of this game? And do you see them as like that Brady Manning rivalry that we saw in the AFC for so long? Do you think that potentially we could see this again in the coming years?
And normally I would say, everything's kind of overblown and why are we talking about this so much? But I don't think we can talk about this matchup enough. I think it 100% is the storyline for this game. These are the two quarterbacks who could dominate not just the AFC, but the entire NFL for a very long time. I mean, Josh Allen's game, his style of play is something we haven't really seen in the position, and nobody's been able to stop it. And I think it's here to last because he is winning with his accuracy and his mind, and with an offensive coordinator who at least is going to be around another year. So having Daboll around for another year, maybe he get his successor really in place for beyond 2021. I only see Josh Allen doing this, and obviously I only see Mahomes doing this. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to see. I think that these two guys are going to reign supreme. And for the narrative of this game specifically, you can't beat this dead horse at all because this is storybook stuff. I mean, the Bills traded that pick when their owner wanted that player, and it led to Patrick Mahomes being with the Chiefs.
Wanted that player badly. That's the part that just blows my mind.
Early, I mean, you're talking October, the fall before. I mean, he started watching them, and he's in their ear from that point forward. But give the Bills credit. I mean, they could have drafted Josh Rosen the next year. I mean, this thing could have blown up in their face in a lot of different ways. They took the right guy in 2018. They created an environment for him to grow in, and he's only getting better. I'm getting excited. I can't wait for these games today. It's going to be amazing.
So obviously you love yourself some Pat Mahomes. I love myself some Pat Mahomes. We've won some fantasy football championships together. That's the bond that I have with Pat Mahomes. But also watching him on the field, he is such an electric talent. There was the article, the feature that you had him as the Michael Jordan of the NFL. What makes Pat Mahomes, outside of the skills, what makes him this Michael Jordan figure? Because Michael Jordan was more than an athlete. He was a figure. He still is a figure. He's a fixture in sports forever. What makes Pat Mahomes Michael Jordan-esque to you?
I think it's that ability to kind of redefine the position and redefine the sport and make us watch the game in a different way. I mean, Michael Jordan was a little before my time. Try to study up, read as much as I can, but when he comes in, there's nobody doing anything he's doing. I mean, he's I think we kind of remember the late 90s Michael Jordan and hitting that shot in game 6 and relying on that jumper a little bit. Early Michael Jordan, that was through the air stuff. I mean,
right.
We hadn't seen somebody play above the rim like that ever. I mean, Magic Bird was below the rim stuff. I mean, this was different, and he changed the game, and people emulated him, copied him, wanted to be him. Patrick Mahomes has had that same effect in the NFL. The way he plays quarterback, nobody else does this stuff. Nobody's doing the no-look passes as much as him. Nobody is like running away to his left, flipping the torso around, throwing it against his body, and at the angles he is, the arm angles, it's over the top. It's here. It's all the way down. I mean, and it's a result of playing these different sports. I mean, he was an incredible basketball player. His court vision was insane. Baseball, obviously, his dad playing professionally. I've talked to his buddies when they go golfing. They say he steps up to the tee. He can crush it like he's on the PGA. Hatchet throwing, it doesn't matter what he does. He's going to be the best. And he somehow is like taking these sports and it's combined it and fused it into his own interpretation of the position that is unbelievably fun to watch, unbelievably dominant, unstoppable. I don't know how the Bills slow this guy down, even with the turf toe. That could be a factor, but I think he'll find a way to get his, and it's going to be a shootout.
Yeah, and the part that scares me the most, as always, when we're talking about the Chiefs, there are so many weapons on this Chiefs offense as we kind of preview the game and preview the opponent here. There are so many weapons on this Chiefs offense. Where does this offense rank to you in terms of like recent NFL history or even just NFL history overall? I feel like this is like a generational offense. Like we'll remember this offense 15, 20 years from now with Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, even Mecole Hardman. Shout out to Sammy Watkins. The feature you did on him was incredible and very interesting. Where do you see this offense though, like in history? Is this like one of the elite offenses?
I think it is. I mean, and that's even saying that we're in a totally different era than we were, say, the Greatest Show on Turf. When the Rams are doing that kind of stuff, nobody is coming close to scoring at the clip the Rams were. This year, we're seeing other offenses put up 30-plus points a game. I mean, the Bills being one of them. It's just a different game. The way the rules are set up, very pass-friendly, offense-friendly. There's no fans in the stands. I mean, I think everything kind of caters to the offense, especially in 2020, so the numbers might be even a little skewed. All that being said, I don't know how you say it's not. I mean, you're talking 3 years in a row of just juggernaut stuff, score at will stuff. And, I know the numbers are what they are, and you could break them down to your eyes are red, and they're amazing. But isn't it just like a feeling that you have watching a Chiefs game that, it's inevitable? Patrick Mahomes might be struggling, kind of like Super Bowl last year. He's under duress. The 49ers are hitting him. They're getting to him. They're flustering him. He played bad for about 2.5, 3 quarters. And you just had a feeling he was going to turn it on. Like, you just get this feeling he's just going to turn it on. And all these weapons around him are going to figure it out. And it's hard to get to that point. I think the Bills are almost kind of there, but the Chiefs are there. And that feeling is going to be there for a long time for them.
That might be in and of itself the whole Michael Jordan comparison, and that Michael Jordan would turn it on when anyone in the room or on the court was at their weakest, he would be at his strongest. Whether it was the final minute of the game, he'd be as fresh as a daisy. That's kind of the mentality that Pat Mahomes has, is that whether I've played 3 bad quarters I'm going to play the last 5 minutes of this game like it's the last time I will ever play football. That's what I've seen for Pat Mahomes. He's doing things that I've never seen before, to your point. And I think back to the Kurt Warner reference, it goes beyond the greatest show on turf. This is the greatest show I think that you could put on. And to have a dance partner like Buffalo, when you're looking at how dynamic this Chiefs offense is and how elusive this Bills offense has been with Diggs and John Brown and Cole Beasley, and Brown really has been out the majority of the year. But Gabe Davis, like there are these X factors on this Bills offense in droves, just like there are X factors on this Chiefs offense. How do you see this game with both of these offense playing out? You said that you expect a shootout, but do you see this as a game where whoever has the ball last wins potentially with how great these offenses are?
I think that's the way you look at it. And even today, I look at it as whoever can steal a possession somehow wins at any point, because the Chiefs are going to be able to score at will. The Bills are going to be able to score at will. And if you're Jordan Poyer and that ball is in your vicinity and Patrick Mahomes gives you that one shot at a turnover, you got to take it. Like you got, and just like Josh Allen, that fumble against the Colts, if you're the Colts, you got to bounce on that. You got to take advantage, because I just really think both offenses are so loaded, like you said. They're clicking on all cylinders. I mean, I know they may not do what they did against the Ravens and literally throw every single play in the first half, but I think they're going to go down swinging the way that they want to go down swinging, and that's through the air. You're not going to see Devin Singletary carry the ball 25 times in this game.
No, I don't. I think this will be a laser show between Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes. And, as we dive into the game here, I think a lot of people, Bills fans or Bills haters, I could say even Bills fans and Bills haters, have kind of thought, well, this is the one where we come up short. The Chiefs are just too good. They're too dynamic. I've heard that, leading up to this game, especially on Twitter. There's some fears out there that, this might be the end of the Bills season. But I remind everybody that's tuning into this show, and whether you're on Twitter or YouTube or Facebook, I think the Chiefs are not unbeatable. They are a beatable team. I go to some stats here that each of the Chiefs' last 8 wins have been by 6 points or fewer, including the playoffs, which is the longest streak in NFL history. That I found fascinating. Where is this red-hot Chiefs offense in terms of the Chiefs scoring 22 points or fewer in 3 straight games, including the playoffs, longest streak since 2017? And then you go on the flip side to, how this matchup favors Buffalo. Found this one fascinating. Since 2017, the Bills have allowed 18 points per game versus the Chiefs, the fewest by any team to play 2+ games versus KC in that span. Now, I know since 2017, this Bills team is different. Kansas City's much different. But I think the Bills have I think X's and O's wise, I've thought this all season long, the toughest matchup for the Chiefs is the Buffalo Bills. What do you think of that assessment? Do you think that this matchup will be tougher for the Chiefs, win or lose, than a Super Bowl might be?
Whew, boy, it's hard to say, because I'm not going to bet against like Tom Brady this time of year. I mean, that'd be a tough matchup. The Packers are rolling. I think you made a really good point, though. As much as I'm gushing over the Chiefs, and for good reason, because I just feel like Patrick Mahomes is due for one of those Mahomes games. Mm-hmm. They haven't been themselves lately, for different reasons. Rest, the concussion, neck, nerve, toe, whatever you want to call it last week. I mean, they didn't have him. They were able just to squeak by the Browns with Chad Henne. So, and yeah, I mean, defensively, they've shown some deficiencies at times in December. And teams have been able to expose some things, and Mahomes would just kind of bail them out at the end. I guess there's part of me that thinks they'll just kind of figure it out offensively, and they know the stakes of this game, this moment, and they're going to fight, and they're going to put together a game plan. Andy Reid will, that is going to be vintage Mahomes and vintage Chiefs. But you're right, they're not unbeatable, because the Bills are damn good themselves on offense. I think that they're going to be able to keep up. I don't think Sean McDermott should really approach it the way they did the first time around, and like, all right, we'll let him run. Let Clyde Edwards-Helaire get his, and just kind of play prevent, take away the big play. Because, I mean, the Chiefs can win that way. They dominated time of possession. Mahomes was still, 21 of 26? Yep. They made the throws and the plays late they had to. I never felt like the Chiefs were not in command of that game. So if you're the Bills, play your game, throw it all over the place, play the defense you want to play. Try to dictate things that you can. And you know what? If you lose, you lose, but you did it your way.
Yeah, I love that. I love the aggressive. I think the aggressive mentality against the Chiefs is what has been their downfall in their losses this season. Although there's only two, it's very seldom that they've lost this season. But I watched when they played the Raiders. The Raiders just ran it down their throats. They did what they wanted to do. Their cookie cutter way of winning, the John Gruden power, runs. That's what Buffalo has to do, but in their own way. To your point, I want to see the Bills be extremely aggressive. I honestly want to see Josh Allen fire one deep on the first play of this game. Like, that's the type of mentality I want. Whether it happens remains to be seen. Yeah. Whether it's a little crazy, you could agree or disagree with me, but I want to see them just really go for it, because we're one game away from the Super Bowl. We're one win away from something that you talked about with the man, the myth, the legend, Don Beebe. Will we see the Beebe Bowl? And to go to the NFC Championship just briefly before we go back to our final predictions for the AFC Championship game, you're not going to count on Tom Brady this time of year, but can you count out Aaron Rodgers this season? And what do you think of that NFC Championship game, to touch on that?
Yeah, I think I do think we're going to see it. I'm picking Bills. I'm picking Packers. Sorry to jump ahead to your next one too.
Yeah.
I think that both teams are rolling right now. Mm-hmm. I think both teams are going to find a way to get the win. It was great talking to Don Beebe about his memories too up at Go Along. I mean, he was just fascinating. He's obviously for both teams. But I think that right now the Bills are going to find a way, like we talked about. It may be Isaiah McKenzie. It may be, God, who knows? Somebody on defense we're not even talking about right now. Could be Terry Johnson again. Maybe
I was going to touch on that.
somebody's going to make a play. And I think Green Bay wise, as much as you hate to bet against Tom Brady this time of year, at Lambeau Field, they've been dying to host an NFC Championship game. They've never done it with Aaron Rodgers. I think that Green Bay finds a way to get it done against Tampa Bay. Buffalo finds a way to get it done in Kansas City. And hey, we're going to have plenty of Packers and Bills stories up with experience in both stops that go along. So hopefully we can whet that appetite for people.
That's really awesome, too, because you obviously worked in Green Bay and worked, covered the Packers. So that, man, I think that if the Green Bay Packers and Buffalo Bills face off in the Super Bowl, I really like that matchup for the Buffalo Bills. Yeah. It's so surreal having these discussions with guys like yourself when I know that you've covered this team for a long time, and there's been a lot of seasons that have just been so just awful, for lack of a better term. And now we're talking about an AFC Championship game. You got the Bills winning this game. We haven't talked about the defense hardly at all. It's hard to really talk about the defense when we have two offenses going head-to-head like these ones with the Chiefs and Bills. But what would be your keys to victory today for the Buffalo Bills? I always have that keys to victory segment on the show. I want the Tyler Dunne go-long TD keys to victory for the Bills today.
I'm going to say keep Mahomes in the pocket. Kind of obvious there, considering all of his interceptions this season have been in the pocket, not outside. You can't let him get out. I think that toe could be a factor. Mahomes is so good. I hesitate to say that he's going to be anything but exceptional, because I think he will be unbelievable. But I think the Bills can win at that Mahomes game. I think that they can play at that speed. They can go drive for drive, which I would not have said, even a few months ago. Right. They can blow up on offense themselves. So I think, defensively it's that. Offensively it's keep throwing. Dance with who brung you. Don't think about handing the ball off to Devin Singletary 25 times because you got a clicker that tells you, I got to run this many times, pass this. No, just throw it. If you got to run to seal the game out in the fourth quarter, that's when you run, and you might need to do that. But I think, let Josh Allen throw it all over the place. Take advantage of those matchups. Those corners aren't nearly as dynamic and really physical as Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters were. So I think there's going to be opportunities there. And that's it. I mean, really, if they do that, their special teams game is solid. Their kicking game is solid. It's hard to find a weakness on this Bills roster. It's not like they're, Ed Oliver getting blown over in the middle of the defense is necessarily going to kill you. Run defense isn't as big of a factor as maybe it used to be. I think the Bills win in a shootout.
I love it. I think defensively, the one guy that worries me is CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That is the guy that does worry me just based on what he did in that first matchup. But that first matchup feels like it was years ago. It feels like it was so long ago because so much has happened for the Bills and so much has happened to the Chiefs. It's almost been like as the season has, progressed here for Buffalo, they have progressed. And although the Chiefs are 14-2, going by the stats that I posted during the show, I feel like the Chiefs are kind of wounded at this point. They're just not really firing the way that they normally do. Maybe they do today, and maybe they win. Who knows? But that's what makes football so great. So you got the Packers, you got the Bills. Tyler, this was an awesome show. I greatly appreciate you hopping on. I hope that your Super Bowl prediction is right. Because if it is right, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the Buffalo Bills will win their first Super Bowl against the Green Bay Packers this year. And I'm going to have you back on the show, hopefully, and we'll talk about it.
Let's make it happen, man. Let's do it. Thanks so much, Ryan. This was great.
Of course. And thank you for the great content, folks. Go out, golongtd.com. Check out the most insightful interviews that you could possibly read. I'm telling you, Tyler Dunne is amazing at what he does. Very original. And this podcast with yourself, Jim Manos, and former Bills GM Doug Whaley, mind-blowing. The stuff that you learn within the NFL front office. I was literally driving home. I said it earlier in the show, but I was driving home, and I'm just like, oh, my God. Oh, my God. I couldn't,
goal, man. Try to tell you a story you haven't heard before.
I called my dad and I sent him the link. I'm like, you need to listen to this whole thing. Just sit down, listen to it. I'm telling you, man, great stuff. And thank you so much for joining me, Tyler. I really appreciate it.
You got it, man. Thank you. That was fun.
Awesome. Go Bills, and we'll be talking soon. Stay in touch.
All righty, man. Definitely keep in touch. I appreciate it, dude.
Take care.
All right, we'll see you. Stay in touch, definitely. All right, see you, man.
See you. That was the great Tyler Dunne on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm not going to lie to you. The fanboy in me, no, I'm just kidding. I really have enjoyed tuning into Tyler's podcast, as well as his articles on golongtd.com to get the take of Tyler Dunne on this game. For him to say that the Buffalo Bills are going to win today, that makes me even more confident than I already was going into this one, that the Buffalo Bills will get it done. I don't know how they'll get it done, but I just have this feeling that today the Buffalo Bills are going to be AFC champions heading to their first Super Bowl in 25 plus years. It's so surreal saying that. It's even more surreal feeling confident in that prediction. I want to get to some of the comments in the comment section below here. Pedro Serrano says, Josh Allen has no ceiling. He will be here sooner than expected, better than Brady ever was, as long as he stays healthy. Man, that's a take. That's a fire take. Pedro, I love it. I love the take that you're bringing. Josh has got a little bit of a ways to go in order to get to the Brady status, but hopefully he gets there. And let's see here. Nick says, do you think the Bills defense can shut down the Kansas City Chiefs offense? I hope so. That's the key to this game. Will they get it done against the Kansas City Chiefs offense, defense, Bills D versus KC's D? I'm hoping. But folks, thank you so much for tuning into the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm Ryan Thomas. You can check out my show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. That was myself, Tyler Dunne, joining me on the show today. Thank you to Tyler for joining me. Greatly appreciate it. Take care, everybody. Go Bills. I got the Bills winning this one 31-28 in a shootout, a AFC Classic in the AFC title game. We'll be tuning in 4 more hours. Stay safe, everybody. Go Bills.